Hey, it's Ashy. Today I have Wall,
Hello.
and Dev is here.
Hello, hello.
So, we've been talking a lot about some numbers when we're talking about animal companions, mostly stats. And I was thinking it might be good to lay a foundation about what these stats mean and what is a good stat? So, what's a valuable number to have? When is low too low? You know, let's talk about some ability scores. The first ability score on the docket, strength. Strength governs your melee attack rolls, your melee damage rolls, your combat maneuver bonus, your combat maneuver defense, your carry weight, and some other things.
Well, you say some other things. It's probably worth actually mentioning that it's got the hidden interaction with Intimidate.
Elaborate.
So, there's a lot of complaints that you'll see online where people go, why is Intimidate tied to Charisma? What if I am this giant, heavily armored slab of flesh? Shouldn't I be inherently scary? The answer is yes, you are. And you should be getting a hidden background, like modifying the DC style bonus for being bigger, scarier, and magnitudes more dangerous than the thing you're trying to intimidate. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
actually all tied to charisma and force of personality and all that bullshit. If
Also,
you
that
have massive strength and big guy, you should have a much higher intimidate score.
I was gonna
Modifier
mention,
against
yeah,
that person.
there is that bonus to intimidate from being better armed than whoever you're intimidating, or just being generally larger. And inversely, there is a mitigating factor if you happen to be smaller than what you're trying to intimidate.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, though, they for the most part turned that into the fucking feat, where it's like, yes, add your strength to it.
Intimidating prowess.
Yeah. Which cool feat and all, but I still find it really stupid. Like if you're playing a character with 8 charisma because you're just trying to play the muscle, suddenly you're less scary than the little nerd because the nerd happens to be a charisma. It happened between Amala and fucking Kaflang. Kaflang tries to intimidate someone, fails, and then Amala fucking makes them shit their pants.
I mean, you can definitely justify the high charisma doing it because it's anyone who's familiar with One Piece and it's fucking hacky where you just impose will on people. You kind of reach that point. I understand why that exists, but I'm of the camp where you should be able to use either or, whichever's higher.
I was about to say I feel that for intimidate at the very least, it should be strength or charisma, like whichever one is higher.
Yeah.
But yeah, that hidden interaction is basically a home rule, and house rule.
Yeah,
No, it is mentioned It is mentioned somewhere under intimidate.
Modifiers: you get a +4 if you're larger than your target. If you have the persuasive, you get a bonus. If you're half orcs, get a +2. But yeah, that's about it.
I'm actually pretty sure that
you can have 400 strength, and if you're a halfling, you're getting that -4. You are
God.
not scary.
I'm pretty sure
Really?
they
I thought
actually
strength.
mitigated out the strength being directly influencing it, but there's still bonuses to just being bigger and better armed.
Okay.
Honestly, even the better armed isn't appearing here.
I believe that is actually listed somewhere in game mastering rather than in the intimidate skill.
Of course,
Because not everything is listed in a sane place where it's easy to see for everything.
Figures. But yes, strength is a pretty decent stat for the whole if you're trying to play the big beef stick.
Just wait until we get into dexterity, and the arguments that come from dexterity is the best objective stat. And I'm like, no, strength is shut up.
I mean, like the stat we're about to talk about, dexterity, the objectively best stat because it governs range attack rolls, it governs your armor class, it governs your reflex saving throws, it governs your initiative, and because of all the interactions, can be used to govern other things via feats or abilities.
Yeah, it's just certain classes. It's just like, yeah, you can dump strength altogether because now it's like, yeah, your dex is also your damage and it's also your attack rolls.
Not playing a strength rogue or playing a strength monkey's cowardice. Is all I'm saying.
I am a bigger fan of strength than I am of dexterity. Strength still has carry weight, and carry weight, no matter what you are, is valuable.
That's why you have
Hell
a
yeah.
Catling.
You know, we don't have much more to say about dexterity, but regardless, Constitution.
I think the biggest issue we might be having right now is that we're doing an overview of the stats, where each stat actually needs a very hour-long breakdown to do it any kind of justice.
Ah.
But let's not.
Don't. Why would you fucking say that? You know, Ashy. Why would you fucking say that?
Okay, so hour-long video on strength coming in. Get ready.
No!
You're talking about the person that started this entire channel with fucking spiked gauntlets. Why would you say that?
Why? I am never living that down. I love spike gauntlets, though. I feel they're so underappreciated.
They're bored. Let's not have an argument about spike gauntlets.
Let's talk about Constitution instead. So, Constitution.
Arguably the most important stat, because if this hits 0, you dead.
Yeah, Constitution governs your Fortitude save, but it also governs your hit points. A bigger Constitution means more hit points. This is not one you want to have negative, despite it looking so easy to just dump.
The thing I hate about that is if you want to play the sickly wizard or something, don't do it. It'll just get you killed.
Yeah, if you want to be sickly, play that out in your traits. Or just roleplay that out. Don't mechanically be sickly, frail, and squishy.
Like, we were having this conversation a little bit earlier. I have played a 6 Constitution Alchemist. But boy, it's rough. It's real rough. You're in a fight for your life no matter what you're doing.
Goblin walks up with a switchblade, you hand him all your gold.
Oh, Vitzel had just throw a bomb at her feet and we're all fucking gone.
Yeah,
but yeah, I've done the same thing. I made a low-con character once. It was a Zen archer, and the argument was, well, I'm always going to be at bow range anyway. But it was rough. The second something got through the line and got to me, it's like, oh god.
That's just hubris, though. I'm always going to be at the end of my first range increment. That's just sheer hubris.
I mean, when you've got monk enhanced movement, as long as the rest of your party isn't being completely stupid and letting things run past them.
I mean, true. This is how Crom ended up within the situation of just being able to kinetic his turret and pissing off the DM. It's like, well, the party did build to protect me, and they're doing it very well.
Yeah.
How much temporary hit points have I done? Damage have I done to myself? Well, my max HP is about a third of what it should be. It doesn't matter. Jarud is terrifying.
Truth.
So, man, there's a lot of pros and cons here to just dumping Constitution. It's like you can do it, but your entire party now needs to be on playing defense and stopping the ball coming out straight to you.
Yeah.
Because if the ball touches you, you're going to die.
It's also at that point pretty easy to just get collateraled by any AoE hitting the party.
Oh, it's true. Actually, you get fireballed and die.
Yeah. Hey, at least you can't have like negative hit points in this system from character creation. It's literally impossible to die in character creation due to Constitution. You can't do it.
And 3.5 Wizards, yo.
Yeah, 3.5 Wizards, yo. Where you could functionally have so little Constitution and hit points that you actually just started dead.
I think that was actually more like 2nd edition. I think 3rd edition also had the minimum of 1 rule implemented.
Oh, okay.
I did think of a single situation in which you could dump your con. If you're playing a synthesist summoner.
I mean, that's
because
true.
You don't need your stats.
That's true, but Synthesis Summoner's a deviant thing on its own. We can't
It's
really
typically banned.
Yes.
we can't really account for that one.
But it's a situation.
True, it is a situation.
If the DM is enough of a psychopath to allow you to play a synthesis summoner, then you can dump Constitution and the DM deserves what happens next.
Yeah, if you're playing a
When-
synthesis
when
summoner,
your
you don't need
character
any of the
walks
first
up-
3 stats here.
Yeah, when you walk up with like 3s in your strength, dex, and con because you're just wearing the fucking power suit.
I am Iron Man.
Just
Let's
don't
stop
get
talking about
ambushed.
synthesis summoner.
Yeah, I'll stop talking about that. Intelligence. So, intelligence on a baseline affects how many skill points you get, which invest into your skills, which are generally your non-combat actions that you are able to perform. Or, you know, the things you can know and know how to do.
It's a pretty common dump stat.
It's a pretty common
To be
dump stat for a lot of classes. Especially like those marshals that only get like a 2+ intelligence modifier because you can't have less than 1 per level anyways.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely one of those. So, do you plan to take combat expertise? Yes. Is dirty fighting available? Yes. Dump it.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Count as 13 intelligence? We're good.
Count as having enough intelligence.
I still think combat expertise having that intelligence prerequisite is just stupid. It's like idiots who are geniuses at combat is just such a huge trope in everything.
I mean, you're
But
not
no.
wrong, I suppose, yeah.
But no, in this system you can't do any of the cool things because they all required you to have this particular feat, which required you to be above average intelligence. At least when they
It's a criticism
invented
to
dirty
have.
fighting, that kind of saved it. But even then, that still brings it down to a lot of those people weren't dirty fighters. Combat expertise should just not have that prerequisite. Bad enough that it exists in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's odd that they tied combat expertise to all of the, well, not all of, but many of the combat maneuvers.
Yeah.
Considering that combat expertise itself has nothing to do with them. Which is why
Yeah.
dirty fighting exists, and is great. Because
is-
it will feed
it-
easily and comfortably into all of those feats.
It's a legacy tax feat, effectively.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's-
I'm fairly certain that it exists because it's always existed.
But it's feats like that that make me realize why that elephant in the room rule system is so fucking popular, even though I find it's a little too much.
Elephant in the room.
It's a rule system that
Basically, oh,
basically, it's a rule system that basically removes a lot of the tax feats, rolls some of them together, and makes a lot of feats just not have prereqs that don't make sense.
We've had a conversation about this, actually, haven't we? I'm sure we've
Probably at
talked
some
about
point.
it.
I didn't mind the system when I was first reading it because it's like, yeah, no, it gets rid of a lot of those feats that are, but then it's like it goes a little too far. Oh yeah, weapon focus doesn't make sense. It should apply to all weapons when you pick it because like no, you clearly don't know what the word focus means and specialization means.
I think there's an argument to be made that weapon specialization should apply to weapon groups. Maybe?
Yeah, but that's fighter. Whereas
True, that's actually
it's-
just fighter things.
Yeah.
Whereas this person was just like, no, I want to take one feat and just have it universally apply to everything. You know, me being weapon focused in the longsword doesn't make sense. I should be just as good with my bow.
I mean, okay.
Ah,
okay.
yes.
I could understand if it was weapon focused for an entire fighter group. Granted, fighter does manage to do that inherently by itself, anyways.
Yes.
Regardless, like I could comprehend and see that. Because understanding how to wield a longsword, you probably understand how to wield most other swords of similar size.
Yeah,
Whatever.
it would generally teach you the edge alignment and all of that stuff.
I like how this has got nothing to do with our stats.
It has nothing to do with intelligence. Or wisdom,
Nope.
which is next. So, wisdom. The big primary function of wisdom is will saves.
We
Okay.
did
So that's an oversimplification.
Yeah.
What wisdom also does is control the skill profession, which can allow you to be making checks that would normally be reserved for intelligence-based skills within a broader band, as long as it's relevant to that profession. And it is something that is tied to your wisdom and not your raw intelligence.
I was
So
gonna
profession.
get to things like that pretty soon, but yeah.
What do you mean pretty soon? We're talking about wisdom. It's like it controls your will save. It allows you to show up skills based on wisdom if your intelligence isn't low. But it's also less appealing to dump because the second any kind of crowd control comes your way, you're a blithering idiot.
Yeah.
Let's also throw this one out. Wisdom also controls perception, and perception is the most rolled skill in the game.
Fucking true.
It
So
fucking is.
you want
Sure.
wisdom because, I mean, personally, I would rather get hit with an instant death spell and be removed from the party than get hit with a mind control spell and be added to the enemy team.
Yeah. Will save is arguably the most important of the 3 saves. Just arguably. Reflex
Yeah.
save,
I mean,
basically always just damage. Fortitude saves, bad for the body. Will probably do some stat damage or some other horrible stuff. Will
Might
save,
kill you.
you're probably going to start beating your friends up.
a lot of instant death effects are also will save. Bodak's gaze, a bunch of other things. They're actually will saves, not fortitude saves. So it's also instant death protection.
And one thing that we did not mention about intelligence is it tends to be the important stat for some of the arcane casters, and
No, it's
wisdom
gonna-
is generally the divine casters.
I was also going to mention that for like the last 3 stats here, because that's kind of just
Yeah.
the rule of thumb.
Yep.
And speaking of the last 3 stats, last
Yeah.
stat we have here is charisma.
The
Charisma-
stat.
Charisma for
You say
most-
ooh woo. No, I call
characters-
it's the pornomancer stat.
True. You've done that before, haven't you? Whether by intent or by accident.
My last 2 characters, it turns out, have all been pornomancers. Looks
yeah,
at the warlocks plus 30 diplomacy. Why?
yeah,
Accident.
Charisma has that problem of it's literally the cause of the horny bard.
Yeah.
Even
But-
though the horny sorcerer makes even more sense because their bloodline literally comes from at one point or another someone got a little too horny.
Look,
Okay, that's an oversimplification.
you say a
but yeah.
little too horny, but that's just calling out like 70% of the player base who are all monster fuckers,
there.
including you two.
Whoa
Oi.
there. Alright, so basically charisma just governs stats on its own for most characters. And all these stats, except for constitution, they all have skill checks related to them or that build off of them. Like the examples given already, perception and profession for wisdom. Basically all the interaction-based checks, diplomacy, bluff, and intimidate, are tied directly to charisma by default.
It's also further worth noting that charisma can also have a decent impact on combat if you're going through the whole dazzling display and shatter defenses combat route.
It can.
So you need your intimidate check for that, which unfortunately being bigger and well armed than your target isn't going to do much heavy lifting in that case.
Yeah. In those cases, hopefully you have some built-in class scaling, or some items, or some feats for that.
Sure.
Because if you're doing that, you're probably already very reliant on some physical stats for actually, getting your hits and doing your damage.
Mhm.
And, like I was going to mention, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are all also common casting stats for several different casters. Like, wisdom is mostly used for your divine casters, though charisma is used for sorcerer and oracle and a couple of others specifically. Mostly archetypes that are the other ones. And intelligence
I was
is
about
mostly
to say-
arcanists and wizards. And
I was
psychics.
about to say, wisdom and charisma is the casting stat for all your casters, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, no, kineticist fucking exists. which is a
Kineticist isn't a
concaster.
caster.
Yes, it is!
It's not a caster.
It fires crazy energy bolts and does pseudo magic stuff.
It's
It's
not
a
a
caster.
real caster.
It's not a caster.
It's like saying a warlock's not a caster.
It's not a caster.
They aren't. They're just channeling the power of some demon sugar daddy.
Exactly.
So are we now? So wait. So are we saying that we've got to now reclassify into caster and invoker?
I don't want to think too hard on that one.
Which I think that's a really good idea. Do you cast? No, I invoke.
I mean, in fairness, Warlock's, at least 3.5 and Kinesis and Pathfinder, neither of them really cast. They just kind of have spell likes that are similar, but not quite legally distinct.
Yeah, invoking, you call upon. God, you're a terrible nerd. Anyway,
Sometimes, yeah.
where are we going next?
Oh, I thought we were gonna do a quick mention on how there's also another con caster in the form of Iron Caster, but that's also not a real caster. So
Iron Caster needs its own video.
I feel like Iron Caster has several videos devoted to it already.
Hold on, we're gonna see if this is true or not.
Oh dear.
To Google. Pathfinder Iron Caster. Not Iron Gods. Fighter with spells, the Iron Caster, 3 years ago. Caster good, that's Pathfinder 2e. There's one video.
Okay.
There's one video on the Iron Caster.
Well, I guess in the future we can do a video on Iron Caster explaining it. I'll
Hell
say
yeah.
this with defeat.
Yes, I defeated the DM. That means I win Pathfinder. I win the game!
Yep, you win. You get all the experience. The game's over.
What a Pyrrhic. This is a Pyrrhic victory.
Exactly. Alright. So, ability scores. You may have noticed that I've already highlighted some of the score numbers and modifiers in blue and some in red. So, let's start here with 10. 10 is essentially a baseline. 10 is a very common number in the Pathfinder system where it is kind of the baseline for all DCs and most other mechanics. Other things are getting added onto that base of 10.
10 also represents baseline human average.
How much does your common human have hypothetically for strength? 10. How much for dexterity? 10.
Back in the third edition days, it was actually the base 8. So the average human was basically -1 across the law, which is not very charitable, but after seeing what America's been up to, I believe it now.
Damn. Motherfucker.
The median voter, 8 intelligence.
I mean, there's a nice line that I saw the other day. Think of how stupid the average person is, and then remember that roughly half the population is dumber than that.
I said that a few times.
I've also seen it several times on Twitter. It's great. Anyways, that's not important for this video. So, 10's our baseline. At the top above it, you might see mods and along the line. So at 10, you are considered to have a modifier of 0 for whatever stat. So your stat at 10 is neither helping you be better at something or making you worse at something. You are just kind of whatever you are is what you are.
I'm gonna say you're rolling a d20 and it's a flat d20.
Yeah. Plus any other relevant skills. You know, like you'd probably have a skill point in carpentry if you have to be a carpenter. You might have 10 wisdom, but you'll still at least have that +1 for being at least that decent at carpentry. It doesn't sound all that
I'm
exciting.
starting to understand why they get paid in copper pieces a fucking day.
Yeah.
Just me being mean to the NPCs. Don't worry about it.
So, from your even numbers, you may notice on this chart, every 2 up, you get an additional +1 to that modifier. Ergo, if you have a stat of 12, well, congratulations. A 12 will give you +1 in whatever that stat's governed by. Inversely,
Yeah.
going down, even down as far as 9, well, suddenly, now you're taking a -1 to whatever it is. You're -1 worse at whatever it is you're trying to do because of that stat. Now,
I'm trying to add something to this to just contextualize it, but I really can't because man, it's hard to talk about just base modifiers.
it is kind of difficult. You'd have to, like, in order to do that, you'd basically have to compare it to what is something equivalent, such as a bodybuilder would probably be considered to have a 16 strength and a
Really?
+3 modifier.
I mean,
18
here's
is in the realms of like being superhuman.
yeah, 18 is superhuman, but 16 is like still the pinnacle of your species. 16 isn't bodybuilder. 16 is fucking beyond world's strongest man.
Oh, so you're saying
Bodybuilder would be more like
14,
14.
15. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. So 14, 15, you're a bodybuilder. 16, you're the world's strongest man, and anything higher, you're superhuman.
Yeah, anything higher than 16, you're kind of a freak.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at it, they put a fucking baboon at a strength of 14, and realistically speaking, none of you is taking on a baboon.
A baboon
Well,
could
yeah,
probably
a
rip my arm off
chimpanzee-
effortlessly.
A chimpanzee, despite being smaller and scrawnier than a human, is actually perfectly capable of grabbing you by the wrist and removing your arm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine. Arms aren't
So-
essential anyways.
These numbers are definitely abstracted out. It also causes problems with like intelligence, wisdom, and charisma because the average D&D player is also not going to be coming across as any of those, as this group has proven.
I mean,
Amala with a 26 intelligence, well, Des don't have that. What that, Jack?
26.
26. Jack, 26 charisma. I don't fucking have 26 charisma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where we start playing make-believe. Ignore the bullshit coming out of my mouth. Understand that this guy is capable of putting out a much better reasonable statement. Probably.
I only made that point because these are all just... they're abstractions, and the difference between a +2 and a +3 is actually quite monumental as far as what's represented in game. Numerically, it's not that different until you start stacking many different modifiers to get your big funny numbers.
Yeah.
But at the baseline, they do represent more. 5th edition, as much as I don't like it, does a better job at representing what these numbers mean because it's so much more lower to the ground with so little bonuses. When you get that additional +1 or +2,
It means a bit more.
you feel it meaning a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. In 5th edition, they kind of don't they cap you at 20, not counting magical stuff and all that shit. Meanwhile, Amala was sitting at a 35 intelligence.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, in 5th edition, like 20 is considered the maximum for a stat unless you can get some shenanigans to get it higher. But otherwise,
I disagree with that. It's just that everything having there just being less numbers in general makes them mean more and is more representative of what this stat block actually represents.
that's
The difference between the world's strongest man, fucking what's his face, the mountain, being a 8-foot tall utter juggernaut, versus the big ass bodybuilder at 14. The difference, if you look at it, is staggering. The numbers represented it is a difference of +1.
Yeah.
But they mean a lot. The difference means a hell of a lot. Ideally, in a game world, if you're role playing and you're reacting as you're role playing, and you see a guy who's 16 strength and a guy with 18 strength. The guy with 18 strength is going to probably be verging on large size by sheer bulk.
Yeah.
But the numbers just say it's a +1 difference. That's my only point.
Oh
And
yeah,
then-
no, understandable.
And then we have the other side of that table. Hello, Misery, you absolute noodle with 18 strength. You
You've
that
got
freak of
dragon
nature.
blood and dragon muscles and the stronger tensile for weight and mass and silk and
Made out of steel cables, you mean?
Yeah. She's just all sinew. But they're really tough sinew.
Yeah. So, the reason why I have 18 up here in blue is because, naturally speaking, we're looking at a point buy there. Naturally speaking, in point buy, that is the highest you can buy, and with dice, that is the highest you can roll for a single stat.
Yes.
Inversely, the 7 way down here is the lowest you can buy with point buy. You could roll as low as a 3, technically, if you are supremely unlucky.
Remember, if your intelligence is a 3, you're barely sapient.
If your intelligence is a 3, you're technically able to understand language.
I'm super tempted to swap my stats for my.
Oh, 3 intelligence wouldn't be wearing clothes. You wouldn't understand the concept of it.
So what you're saying is it would be
Hey, you say that like you can't put them on an animal. Everything can be trained.
I would have fucking trained that. Might eat me. I'd take my chances with raising bullets.
Fair.
because 3 strength is the lowest you could roll. You could additionally have a modifier reducing you down to 1. If you've managed to do that, congratulations.
You're lizard. You're a smart gecko. You're a lizard now. Yeah, if you've hit 1, you're running purely on instinct. You're just a baseline animal thinking. If you hit 0, you go catatonic. In fact, if you go 0 in most stats, you go just into effectively a coma. Unless it's con, then you're dead.
Con kills you. The 3 mentals put you into a coma. Strength and dex both immobilize you for different reasons.
Yeah.
You're technically still awake with either strength or dex. Just incapable of anything.
Yeah, you're helpless. The consensus is you are basically helpless if you hit 0 in any stat except con,
Which kills you.
die. Now, there's a lot of rules about things that do drain and ability damage that can't reduce you below 1. Things that can reduce you to below 1 tend to be undead, which will kill you.
Yeah.
Like if a shadow drains you to 0 strength, it actually just kills you and it makes another shadow out of you.
That is
So-
a true statement.
So there's a point where it's like, this is how hitting 0 works as a general rule, but it's Pathfinder, so there is, for every rule, there's several exceptions. And the exceptions aren't good for you.
Unless they say you can't go below 1. That's still not a great situation to be in, though.
No.
As we've just discussed, having a 1 intelligence means, yeah, you're basically an animal. You're dumber than the average animal. Having 1 strength, yeah, you're, I hope you weren't wearing a helmet, because you just pinned yourself to the floor with it.
Yeah, you're gonna say the cotton shirt on your back's feeling a bit weighty.
So, now that we've established some extremes,
Hold on, wait a minute. There's one thing we're missing. There is a variant rule for wisdom damage, since your wisdom is also your sanity. So when you start taking wisdom damage and hitting the low points of wisdom, it can also, as the sanity variant rule, can represent you going more and more and more, just turning into a raving lunatic.
that's true, and you can gain insanities by actually having any of your mental stats hit 0.
So you can actually get permanent traumas and dementedness stick to your character. Their afflictions I think to get rid of them, a simple remove disease doesn't work though. I think you might need wish miracle or some really advanced
Heal.
healing to kick those off.
Anything that can kill off an insanity. We'll get rid of
Capital
it.
H heal cures most things.
Yeah. Capital H heal can do it.
What can't it do? Except raise the dead.
It can't remove curses.
Break enchantment. Anyway,
We've
stuttered to a
sidetracked a bit.
stop with that. We stuttered
Alright.
to a stop with that. Yeah. Stat
So-
damage. Bad.
Yeah. So, looking at stats, where would we say where would we actually place is too low?
It depends on the stat. You can, as long as you can carry your essential gear, you can have your strength as low as you want it to be. But you don't want to be encumbering yourself with your basic kit of your armor of choice, your weapon of choice. If you're an alchemist or something, you still need to carry your alchemist kit, which is kind of fucking heavy at like 15 pounds. So your strength can go as low as you really need it to be if you don't care about it.
Realistically,
Dexterity really hurts your AC when it goes into the negatives. But again, sometimes you don't care about your AC and you actually just want to be a giant wall of fucking meat. If you've got decent support, you can dump that. Don't dump con. Bad idea. It's funny if you do, but a bad idea. Any disagreements so far?
nothing
I
strong
kind
now.
of agree with
Like,
those.
I think for strength you don't want to go below 7 because that's about when you start really struggling to carry things. Just basic.
I'll be
common
honest.
things.
With Dex, I kind of agree with the dumping to an extent. If you are a wall of beef, i.e. like a fighter or a barbarian, feel free. But if you are not one of the beefy classes, do not dump it because that one stray fireball that you fail to reflex out of the way from will probably splatter you. Because if you're not one of the beefy classes, you probably don't have the health.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's alright as like a 12 or a 13. Like, it can be low as long as you're not going into the negatives. If you
Yeah, but when you say the word dump, we're not talking about any positives. Dump typically means sub 10.
yeah, as I said, if you have got a shitload of hit points and you can just reliably tank hits and have a bit of support from someone, it's not that important.
Yeah.
Constitution is your hit points. You kind of need those to live. Very important. Or you fail your fort save against myriads of poisons and it starts ripping all your other stats to pieces, including important ones.
Intelligence is probably living in that state of, like I mentioned earlier. If you have low skill points and are dumping intelligence anyways, it doesn't really matter how low you go.
I mean, I feel overall intelligence and your ability to dump it depends entirely on your character concept.
And
Like,
class.
I have my sorcerer in the other game that required a 14 intelligence just so I could have the skill points where I wanted them. But
True.
I'm now going to be playing a barbarian who's got like a 6 intelligence because
there is definitely a big point to be made. You could be playing big dumb bonk, but let's say you plan to go into prestige and prestige as early as you can. You might not want to dump it because you still need to get your prerequisite skills.
yeah.
Which
There is
really...
definitely. This is all circumstantial though, so like, what are you doing with your character? You can dump int if you don't care about it. Don't do it if you do care about it.
Yeah, like if your character is going to
either way.
require it for any reason, you don't want to dump it. But I think it is like this typically the third most popular dump stat, might even be the second most popular.
I'm gonna say
I think there's a good chance of it being
charisma
the
tends to
second.
be the most popular one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to decide if it was intelligence or strength that tends to get dumped the most after that.
That's
I'd say it's
fair.
Intelligence. I'd say it's intelligence.
I'd say it's strength because most people out there are like, dex supremacy.
I mean, true, but let's say you're playing an archer. You're still wanting your composite bow. You're still wanting that bit of extra kick to it.
While I don't disagree with your statement, Wah, we do have to keep in mind that the same people that think Dex is the supreme way to go are the also same people that really like the caster meta of S rank casters.
Magic is supreme because it beats all problems. If you've read the fucking
Quadratic
module.
scaling.
I mean, I
Quadratic
think
scaling until fucking something's got 30 spell resistance and then they're crying.
when my orc looks at a caster and is like, "You better take me out in one hit, because otherwise I'm hitting you harder."
And I run faster than you.
And I run faster.
I mean, Loki, I think barbarians are great anti-caster tools.
They're the premier anti-caster. That is, yeah, barbarians are de facto the anti-caster. Then it's monk.
That makes sense.
Especially if they're spellbreaker barbarians.
It makes sense.
Now we've hit
Yeah.
wisdom, which you shouldn't dump. I don't know, like, realistically, you shouldn't dump it because there's that whole will save. But if you want Big Dumb Grognard the Barbarian, and you kind of want the hilarity of him getting charmed / dominated and the chaos that brings with it as just a character flaw that is so easily influenced, I think there's some funny things you can be had with that. It might cause a TPK though, you've just got to be aware of it.
Yeah, I enjoy the idea of wisdom as a dump stat for like alchemists, and like my first fighter had wisdom as a dump stat, but that's because she kind of needed skill points, and I wanted her to have a decent charisma for skill point reasons and character reasons.
I mean, it's definitely a common archetype: high intelligence, low wisdom. They're just kind of unhinged, Farnsworth style characters.
It just also feels really bad into any amount of will saves.
Yeah, but it's like with Jack. Jack did every stupid thing and did everything the stupidest way possible despite being a wisdom caster. It's like, I think justifying it RP-wise, you can intellectually and with your own wisdom and experience know that something is a bad idea and then go, fuck it, we ball with doing it anyway. Like, you can get around this idea that a high wisdom character is going to do something stupid and it isn't a logical robot. By them just not giving a shit. For the bit.
For the bit.
Man, you may recall Elmo was a high wisdom cleric. And she was a fucking doofus.
Exactly. Well, I mean, she didn't have typically good intelligence, so you can justify it that way as well.
I mean, she didn't dump intelligence, though, either. Like, she had actually reasonable intelligence.
Oh, okay, well.
It's just Ashy who didn't.
Yeah, it's just Ashy that didn't.
That's fair. And now we're on to...
Charisma, the most popular dump stat.
Yeah.
But also the stat that a lot of people like to put high because, ooh woo, I'm cute.
Ooh woo, I'm cute and sexy despite it. I kind of fucking hate that people will just fixate on I must have high charisma because I'm living out my fantasy because me in real life is a homunculus.
The worst part is they've already established that charisma isn't appearance. You could be gorgeous and just have you could be gorgeous and just have the personality of a fucking brick and be low charisma.
Yeah.
Or like your character who has the personality of a fucking god but is going to look like an actual half-melted goat.
Hell yeah. I mean, the idea of charisma, or in the modern parlance, Riz, is effectively, it is force of personality and how you come across. It's got absolutely nothing to do with your physical appearance.
He said, Riz, nuke the whole video, we gotta start over.
Yeah, shame.
This can't even be salvaged with editing.
So, look, I'm sorry, but my melty goat man is, he's just the Rizzler.
Yeah, my thought drifted over to Tom Kench. Because of Kench, not a very attractive character, but a very charismatic one. Big personality.
He's got a voice like fucking melted chocolate. Hell yeah.
He does have a very nice voice.
Yeah.
The voice actor did a good job.
That's an excellent example.
Yeah. Okay, though, realistically, I do feel like, as far as ability scores go, even if you dump stat any of them, you probably don't want them to go below a 7. Below a 7 starts getting dangerous because you start getting into, at a high level, things with with a large amount of stat damage or drain might be able to one-shot you just through your stats.
Here's the thing, though. There is a priority of how often you see it. Like, strength and dex drain and strength and dex damage are the most common. Constitution is probably the third. Int and Wiz, 4. Very few things touch your charisma. It's not safe to dump it down into nothing, but odds are you're not actually seeing anything that eats charisma. If you're going to be going against a lot of things that do poison damage or drains, it's going to probably be strength, dex, or con. Maybe wisdom or intelligence. It's your physical stats that are at risk with those.
I mean, most often, true.
Off the top of my head, the only thing I can think that touches charisma is literally my fucking Warlock's 3.5 invocation, Mask of Flesh, which does D4 charisma damage to them and nicks their fucking appearance. That's a player thing.
I mean, my thoughts... I feel like I know a couple of spells that affect charisma or can dump charisma a bit. There is, of course, I think some venoms that'll do it.
It's just not
Curses
many.
can do it.
Okay.
And,
Okay, so...
I mean, I think I've seen the disease or two that will also hit charisma.
Let's say that you're fighting a boss. There's a generic-ass fucking boss, and he's a caster.
Right.
Does the DM go in and pick a spell that hits their charisma versus CC damage, or even hell, a will save, targeting will save on the big dumb brute? Would that caster go?
I'm just gonna say Feeble Mind and leave it at that.
Okay, Feeble Mind just setting shit to 1 is just completely... It doesn't matter what the stats are, it just sets them to 1.
True.
If you've dumped the shit out of your fucking mentals and someone feeble buys you, there might not be that much of a change.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the purpose of Field Mind is for shutting down casters. Granted,
Sure.
it could follow up with a little bit of leprosy to hit, you know, charisma and con.
I mean, it takes too long to trigger.
Aggravated afflictions.
Alright, but in this hypothetical, this wizard is basically set up to hose that one character who's dumped his fucking charisma. And that's all their job with what you've just set up is... Oh yeah, fuck that guy. That's their job. That's their entire build. Fuck that guy. And I don't think that's particularly realistic.
They'll hit... Well, I mean, that example will hit Constitution and will hit Charisma. And I mean, we could just bring up the entire thing that your anti-paladin was doing, because leprosy would just be one thing on that stack.
True, but if you're going to be fighting an absolute monstrosity like the disease-based anti-paladin, you're probably going to know you're walking up to that thing. That kind of antagonist doesn't just appear out of fucking nowhere. There's got to be signs.
Oh, you mean like the entire city around you being diseased?
Yeah,
let's also be
50
fair.
supernatural diseases in a fucking trench coat floating around.
Let's also be fair. We weren't pointing out that it doesn't happen. We were pointing out that it's the least common. Yeah, you can pull out little examples and very specific nitpicks, but these are little examples and specific nitpicks. There's a lot more that target the others.
Yeah, if something's going after your charisma, the DM is probably laser targeting you and your charisma intentionally. It's not an incidental. Versus strength, dex, con, and occasionally into wisdom, they're just incidental damage from either poison or undead.
And usually from fairly popular monsters too. It's not like it's not like when the new DM sees the rust monster for the first time and decides to throw it out there because.
Yeah. Well, a caveat to that is Lamias, because they all seem to do wisdom fucking drain.
They do.
Touch. So, the entire subspecies of the many, many, many Lamias, they're all going for wisdom, which probably just encompasses most of the things that touch wisdom is just Lamia.
I mean, those are my first examples for wisdom, for things that touch wisdom.
Anything old god related as well. Shoggoths, anything from Lovecraft, they're probably also wisdom eaters. Because they're generally from the insanity subsystem and part and parcel with it.
Yeah.
So they're very wisdom targety and insanity driven.
Yeah.
So, which generally means that, well, your wisdom's never safe to dump anyway, so that's irrelevant.
Well, yeah, they'll do that for you if they can get away with it. And I think my point is, I feel like 7 is probably the safest number to dump to. You don't really want to go below that.
I mean, sure, but I think in this situation, let's say we've low rolled. Let's say on the dice you've rolled a 8 or a 7, and then your race has got a -2, and you don't want it to hit an important stat. I think in some cases you might realistically be going down to 5 if you're a bit unlucky.
Yeah.
Like this is not a case of it being safe. This is a case of how are you going to deal with your negative stat and a low roll.
Roll your 4d6 and drop the lowest. 3, 1, 1, 1. Well, well then.
I've been there. That's happened to me before.
I mean, I
Points
recall
at
And
my
it went
orc.
she had
into
5
charisma.
wisdom.
Yeah, points at my orc.
So, this long, weird debate, this circuitous debate.
I mean,
Charisma's the
let's,
safest to dump because very few things touch it.
let's be fair. You technically want your stats as high as you can get them, and if you're using point buy, you will have to make like sacrifices and concessions. But like if you're rolling, that's just random. You could end up god rolling, or you could end up with pretty terrible stats across the board.
Well, let's say we're going on for point buy. That brings us on to the next thing where odd numbers are far more efficient than even numbers because you've got your ability score improvements every 4 levels. If the difference between a 17 and an 18 is what? 3 or 4 points? As far
So
as point buy is
17
concerned?
costs 13 points, and an 18 costs 17 points, so about 4 points.
4. It's 4 points.
It costs
And
the
that
modifier.
Yeah, and that 4 points can get a 10 up to a 12. So you should generally be running on odd numbers and prioritize which one gets to the next increment from your ASIs that way, because it just allows your entire stat block to go a lot further.
I kind of feel with point buy, if you're gonna push a stat up to an 18, only do that if you're playing like a single attribute dependent character. If you're playing like a sorcerer who only needs charisma to do their job well, then yeah, go for it.
There is definitely a case to be made if you're playing an actual straight up orc, because they get the +4 to strength as well to push it up to a 22. That's
Yeah.
a big early game advantage. Although that same massive stat boost will allow you to have your high stat strength be 16, still hit 20, and show up the rest of your scores in a pretty big way.
Yeah.
This is true.
Like honestly, if I had a 16 and a 20 and a 18 on it, I might have put the 16 into strength and then the 18 into so that they could both hover at pretty insane numbers.
Exactly.
But yeah.
I actually went and had the ability score costs for the point buy up in another tab that I went ahead and flashed on screen.
No, I don't see it.
It's not
Dude,
on,
but
I have it in an open tab.
Yep.
But yeah, to be fair, I feel the lowest I would comfortably go without without it being involved with dice rolling is probably a 7. I would try to avoid going any lower than 7 on any particular stats. And even then, it would depend on the stat. Like, Amala was running around with that 7 strength because she was small little noodle mage.
I think Crom was also a 7 strengther. I think he was also... I mean, Crom was just basically a magical Nobby Nobs.
But then I also had my my swashbuckler, who is entirely dex dependent. I gave that one a 13 strength because I wanted power attack so I can go into the cut from the air line.
Yeah.
It's all very subjective. I think we should just focus on what the safe minimum is. It depends on the stat. It's like charisma can go down to, frankly, as low as you want it to do, and you can be fairly confident nothing's going to touch it. If it does, it's a freak occurrence or the DM hates you. Nothing else should go below 7. Constitution should never go frankly should
Oh.
be below a 12 or a 14.
Drugs also like to hit charisma, so don't take drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
no. Somebody introduces the orc to drugs and he just dies of an overdose the next day.
No, just be catatonic. Actually, there's some drugs that have got some pretty good boosts to physicals and like damage risk
no.
mitigation. Feeding the orc drugs is actually probably a brilliant idea.
Let's not do that.
I'm going to be the DM for this, so no, wait. I will let you into a thing. In one of the very early rooms, there's 150 GP worth of drugs in one of the stores. You have an opportunity, orc, to snort just the entire stash of drugs you find on contact.
Oh
no.
god. You're teaching.
Funny leaf.
You're teaching Kadash bad habits. Oh no.
He's a big stinky fucking orc. He's all bad habits anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, not for an orc. He's probably all very good habits for an orc.
He's
For
chaotic
civilized
neutral,
society.
so he's the nicest orc you're gonna run into.
Or at least the most indifferent orc.
The most indifferent. I mean, he's just here to fight undead.
Hell yeah. So, for the most part, 7 is the lowest you should go on not will save and not dying stats.
So, but they're still bad stats, arguably. You think they should be in red, or should I change some of them to a yellow?
I mean, no one wants to start going into the negatives. It just happens to the circumstance you end up in.
Okay.
Unless your whole point is you wanted to play like the absent-minded professor, high int, low whiz, and then you're doing it on purpose to suit the roleplay. But yeah.
Yeah, at that point, none of it's bad. It's
Yeah.
just a risk you are opting into, and
Yeah.
you're doing it intentionally. And that's the thing. We're not saying that it's bad to do any of the things we said don't do. But as a new player who doesn't want to be putting a massive target on their head, don't do these things. If you are doing it intentionally, go right ahead. It'll be funny.
And the whole point of these games is fun.
This is true.
For the bit.
For the bet.
Just try to make sure that you don't do something that's going to directly like derail the entire game, because it's fun for everyone. It's not supposed to just be fun for the one person.
I mean, there's also the thing with Constitution and Wisdom. One of the biggest pet peeves of players, outside of touching their wallet, is having their agency taken away. And once a character's dominated, they now have no agency. Yes, it's a valid form of CC and standard in, it's high fantasy with magic and domination and mind control.
It's very standard.
But if you don't want to be mind control bait, you need some wisdom. And it's no fun to be sat out for 4 hours while someone tries to resurrect your ass. So don't dump con, or else you might not be playing that session. You'll be dead.
Oh man. I'm just having a flashback to this time that I was mazed.
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
okay, and I sat there for like 2, 3, 4 hours for the entire duration of the maze because the DC was too high for me to make. Oh man, that was horrible.
Yeah.
It felt like I was being held captive. It's like,
You were in a maze.
You were in the maze.
like,
That's the point.
yeah, I can't get up and do something else for a bit and come back because I have to be here to try and make my roll in the off chance I manage to escape.
Yeah, no, I get that. I
Oh
mean,
man,
hell,
horrible feeling.
my character Nofreya's whole build is literally taking advantage of mind control, but it's fine because I'm going to be mind controlling the NPCs.
Yeah.
But if a player group ran into a character like that, that is absolutely just not fun. It's like, oh yeah, I decide that the big fighter, you don't get to participate in this fight anymore because I'm using you to beat up your buddy.
So, in one of Z's big, long-running homebrew campaigns, we fought an anti-party as a counterpart to us. It was the big bad's basically personal party. one of the people in that party was a Kitsune enchantress called Persephone, which was the codename of their OC in that case. But that's beside the point. They were Kitsune. They were full on enchantress. And there was like that, and there was Grim the gunslinger. And frankly, outside of Crit Monster, the fucking Kitsune enchantress was the thing that made us go, fucking no. I was
Yeah.
running my alchemist with true split personality, so the only reason I got to fucking survive those encounters is like, oh, fucking, what was his name? My alchemist got mind controlled, and the Huron just forces his way to the front and goes, I don't fucking think so.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So that brings me to a point, there is also ways to be mitigating these, like, there's those feats, like Twist Away, that allows you to make a reflex save in place of a constitution. You're staggered afterwards, but you can get your blood cells to twist away from the poison, for whatever fucking logic that makes. So
Let's also not forget things like Mind Blank that you had on Kaflang for like most of the adventure.
Ah, yes.
it was he kind of needed it. We weren't
I
letting
mean-
Kaflan get dominated and run fucking rampant through us.
I mean, yeah, but let's be fair. Now we're just getting into party synergy and knowing what your party's weak points are and trying to help each other cover for them.
And
That
I mean,
is
Halfling was also running around with not a cloak of resistance, so he was extra vulnerable to any of the saves. Like, I think he failed
mean-
more saves than Bobble, which is impressive.
I mean, that was
Died
kind of the
less.
point. That was the point I was coming up with next. There is spells, class features, hexes, items. There's a lot of things you can do to shore up your weaknesses if you do end up with a dump stat. Mind Blank, if you can get a hold of it from some source to protect the barbarian from being mind controlled. Suppress charms and compulsions on a caster. That's a fairly low level spell, but also exceptionally useful because it's generally relevant at all stages of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, even just getting your agency back for a few turns can be the difference between winning a fight and murdering your entire party.
There's feats for it. Again, Twist Away. There's one for will save somewhere. I think you can substitute a fortitude save for a will save.
And there's even some like traits and feats that let you take one attribute and use it for a different skill or save or thing like that.
This is true.
Bruising intellect, for example. Intelligence to your intimidate instead of charisma if you've done charisma. There are ways to build around it. Your stats, what you get and roll, even if some of them are bad, is not the be all and end all. You can work with it, swap stats around, get different effects, spells, buffs, items that will shore up those problems. It's not the end of the world. You can do stuff with it. You've got the roleplay option, but then you've got defenses against your own poor choices.
Personally, I like how there's that one feat that allows you to add your charisma to your will save in place of your wisdom score. You still take penalties if your wisdom is negative, but it does make it a hell of a lot better.
I mean, I like that idea that your ego and force of personality is so big. It's not your willpower that's overcoming the effect. It's that you're just like, no, I'm me who does me things. Fuck off.
It's very
And that's just a
flavorful. It's
great
very
thing
cool.
to have.
I don't
Alright.
even think that was a feat. I'm pretty sure that was just a trait.
If that's a trait, then ooh,
That's a very
we
powerful
need to
trait.
all
That's a
be
trait.
using.
I
If
feel
that's
like
a trait, then
Irrepressible.
jeez.
Irrepressible. It's a faith trait. You can use a charisma modifier in place of your wisdom modifier when attempting will saving throws against charms and compulsions specifically.
I feel like
I need
there's
to
a
make a
blanket
note of
feat
that.
for it, but
Yeah,
That's still pretty good.
my enchantress has it.
I need to make more use of that because that is an incredibly. That's a broken ass fucking.
good.
Yeah, that's a good trait. Damn. I wish I knew that existed.
Alright, so let's reel back to some stats real quick. So we've determined that the lower limit of what you probably want to deal with is probably 7. I went ahead and made 8 and 9 red. They might not stay red. Should 17 be blue because 17 is efficient?
17 should be blue because 17 is very efficient.
Yeah.
16 is also efficient, but that's only very specifically. I mean, This is just me thinking about hitting that 20, and it's like 16 is efficient if you're an orc. I don't think anything else gets +4 to strength.
But goblins get a +4 to dexterity, I believe.
Yeah,
But
they do.
what I would say
True.
is, I think 16 should be blue, because in my personal opinion, I feel 16 should be like the lowest you're willing to accept whatever your main stat is supposed to be. Like,
True.
let's
I
say
agree with
you've
that
rolled.
sentiment.
Yeah.
I feel like 16 is the lowest for a workable stat for your main stat. You don't want. I don't feel like you want stats below 16.
Unless you're on 15 point buy, then good fucking luck. Everybody sucks.
15 point buy is rough.
Yeah, it is. You're the most average bunch of fuckers ever.
Yeah, we did that for the game that didn't end up starting, and oh my god, it was rough. Like trying to take this character that I had made with a 25 point buy, and it's like, okay, how can I kneecap this character down to 15 and still do their job?
I mean, you can't, even on 15 point buy, if you're playing a caster, you're going to struggle to be able to cast the higher levels of spells by inherent of existing. You are, again, the averagest motherfucker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's probably a detail worth mentioning, because that's not something that's made obvious unless you read the rules. In order to cast a spell, your score and need to basically be at least 10 plus that spell's level. So, if you only have 11 intelligence, you cannot cast a second level spell. If you have 18 intelligence, and you're a wizard, and that's as high as your intelligence is getting for whatever reason, you're never casting a 9th level spell. You're never reaching 9th level.
Now, you can artificially inflate that number by wearing a headband of intelligence. You need to attune for it for 24 hours for it to be considered a permanent bonus, and if for whatever reason it's suppressed or removed, you lose access to those whatever you are enabling with the headband for another 24 hours. Until it is considered another permanent bonus.
Pretty much. I don't think it being suppressed though removes the what's the word?
Permanency.
Yeah. I don't think it being suppressed removes that permanency. It's it's if you remove it, it needs to be reattuned. The attunement, that's what I was looking for. I don't think suppression removes attunement. I think it's just if it's removed physically.
Okay. I just assumed that if it gets switched off, then that's that.
That would make sense, but it's also keeping in mind that if you walk into an anti-magic field with buffs, your buff's timer might still be ticking. But the moment you walk back out of that anti-magic field, they'll pop back up.
True. It doesn't strip them from you. It's
Yeah.
not a disjunction. True.
Alright.
Don't get disjunctioned. It's bad for you and your wallet.
So, what would we say is a very okay stat? If 16 or higher is good, what's an okay stat? Would you say that's 13 to 15? Or just 14, 15?
I mean, 14, 15 is the okay. If it's at the 13, it's barely better than a baseline 10.
So I'll make these
Like,
green.
the difference between okay and good is... Yeah, the
That's
difference
probably
between good and whatever is very slim.
I mean, I kind of feel like the 12 and the 13 is what you would want for your stats that aren't important to your character, but like unless you're going for something for RP, like that's kind of where you would want your...
It's like, I feel like 13 could probably be given some leeway, because 13 is an important breakpoint for a lot of feats.
I mean, that's true. Let's have 13 be green, because it's your combat expertise and whatever else.
Power attack, true. Like I said, I had my swashbuckler actually just go up to a 13 strength, despite it not being needed for that one feat.
So 13 is your feat access, your baseline.
Yeah.
Sure, that seems fine.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
It's like,
Like,
down to 7 is the dumpable. Anything below 7, you are opting into silly buggers.
Yeah.
You are the meme. my orc who has 2 sub-7s. Yeah.
That's because
First
you
place in
rolled
something.
very interestingly.
Hey, let's
Look.
be fair. DM did say I could re-roll that 5, and I chose not to.
For the
For the
bit.
bit.
I respect it. I like this orc. He's probably my favourite character in this party so far. I like big dumb idiots who hit things.
I mean, he's a very pure character, very pure of he's gonna walk up and bop you.
I mean, when his whole backstory is cultist brand him, so now he's murdering undead and cultists to try and convince the goddess of this cultist to come down and fight him.
If your god's so big, why won't you fight me?
Exactly.
The universe is so great, why won't it fight me? Oh, I love him. I love him so much.
Walks
Right.
in with 100-pound axe because you can't lift it.
So, this is how we feel about the stats. And that's basically what those stats will do without, any feats or much else interaction.
God, I'm reminded of the time that I rolled like 4 18s, a 17, and a 16. And the
That's
DM
juice
was
stat
just...
block.
yeah, just looking
That's-
like, what the hell?
I mean, there is definitely that factor of having a stat block like that does tend to warp the game a little bit because you're just so hyper competent. But as a player, it's great because it means you can do basically anything you fucking want.
At
It
that
means you
point,
can
you
play
find the most mad class and play it, because this will be the best you ever get to play that class.
Yeah, it means you roll a paladin or something.
Yeah. I need 3 good stats. It's a good thing I have all good stats.
Looks at 3.5. You needed 4.
Yeah.
You needed con, strength, wisdom, and charisma.
I
And they all
like
needed to
that
be
they
high.
I like that they fixed some of those things, like making the paladin just charisma instead of wisdom and charisma for their magic and stuff, but I'm still a little annoyed that they did still screw over the clerics with the requiring a charisma for... Because the average cleric is probably not going to have a great charisma since they kind of want to be frontliney and wise.
They need that constitution, they need that wisdom, they need that charisma, and they probably want to string through dex.
It's probably why the cloistered cleric and going full caster was so popular because it strips out the requirement of needing to be a medium BAB skirmisher type.
Or the war priest, which they made it all wisdom because it's based on fervor and shit.
Yeah, man, you make a great point, especially with the hybrid with that consideration. If you're gonna play a cleric, just play it as a caster cleric. Go cloistered or something. If you want to play a frontline cleric, just play a war priest. It'll be so much better
Yep.
for you. Man, war priest is so good. I love that class.
Yeah. I actually loved the Sacred Fist variant because it kind of lets you play a holy monk instead of being a martial arts focused monk.
I mean, that is definitely. I mean, it's in second edition when Monk was introduced. There's always been the complaint of why is this Shaolin fucking weeb or Chinese shit in my Western RPG? And it's like, it's a stupid thing to say, but it has definitely been a sticking point in the
Yeah.
community
I've
for
heard like
nearly
this.
30 fucking years now.
I think monks are just really cool, though.
And they still get annoyed about it, even though most games have also added in like samurai and ninjas at this point.
Yeah,
And a
they
lot
get
of
mad
other...
about those as well.
I mean, they also get mad about why is there gunslingers banned? Because guns in my fantasy.
Okay, I'm just gonna point out that Magitech fucking cowboys from Alkenstar are cool as fuck, and anybody who doesn't agree with that are just objectively wrong.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is pirates, knights, and samurai all existed in the same time period.
And
I'm gonna say, where's that meme?
And cowboys.
Yeah, and
And
cowboys,
cowboys.
at the end of the 18th century. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a party.
I still love that meme. It's like, oh yes, a disillusioned French pirate, a samurai, a cowboy, all partying up.
Hey, you can get some Victorian era alchemist or occultist in there as well as your caster. We
True.
had plenty of those. Look at point, just gestures at Alistair Crowley, the mad bastard that he was. So, a story about Alistair Crowley: he'd dress up in his full wizard regalia and go to coffee shops in London, and he'd cast his magic spell to be invisibility that no one could see him, and it worked. But it didn't work because he was invisible. It would work because everybody in London was too polite to stare at this guy in wearing a wizard hat.
Alright. We should probably start wrapping it up and do our closing thoughts.
That's a funny story. Is it
Closing
worth
thought.
being here?
Try to stay above 7. Try to stay above 10. Above 7 in a pinch, and below 7 for the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've got the opportunity to get a 20 or above, do it.
20 or above's
Always.
really good.
Yeah, always take that 20 plus.
It's why I really like the Spino.
Stat sticks, yeah.
Stat deck.
It's the thing. Stat sticking is incredibly powerful because it gives you such versatility. We're going to go points at June again. 3 meta builds in a trench coat just based off raw stats. And got the human trait for well-educated, so I was trained in all the knowledge skills. So she was actually just a fucking encyclopedia of knowledge checks as well. It's like, if you can... what's my point? If you can get big stats, it's good for you because you can do anything. It doesn't matter what your class is, you can start doing anything. If you're a fighter and you've got big decks and big whatever, you can start siding into stealth and being good at it.
Yeah. I've got nothing really to add to that. Well-
God rolls are God rolls. It means everything. And
Especially early game before Magic Gear starts getting involved.
oh god, yeah.
I mean,
You'll
arguably, yeah, stats
feel
are
your
probably, stats are
yeah,
probably
you'll
most
feel your
important early.
stats way better at that level. Like level 1 to 5 before you start getting Magic Gear to shore it up. Yeah.
I mean, there is that definite point where D&D tends to be the most fun between level 3 and 10. Because you've got past the level 1 to 3 hurdle where you've just got nothing to do, but you've not hit that thing where everything's a world-ending threat and everything's feeling a bit washed out and stupid.
Yeah.
Not everything was a world-ending threat. Amala's dad wasn't a world-ending threat. Just a monster.
That's because he didn't want to go and end or conquer the world.
I'm gonna say, I'm pretty sure Amala's dad could have walked up to what's his face and kicked the shit out of him. I forgot the Sin Lord's name.
Karzog.
Yeah, Karzog. I'm pretty sure that Amala's dad could have walked up and soloed Karzog. So no, you're wrong. It's that whole thing after we finished Iron Gods. It's like, oh yeah, well, fucking Unity. The thing happened, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a satellite, and he's become a god. And then we started talking about Tar-Bathon in the next campaign. It's like, yeah, Tar-Bathon could just tear him out of the sky and snap him over his knee. He meant nothing. He just meant a lot to you in your current situation. This other boss, though, wipes the floor with it. I think that's the situation we happened with Amala's dad. If he really wanted to, he could have actually just gone and won the campaign and become the new threat.
The problem when the DM takes a character backstory and then makes it into a super boss.
Super boss, super loot, super XP.
I still remember that. Why the fuck is he so strong? You all get 1,000,000 XP? That's why.
Offended that the fight was so hard and took so long while he was fighting in his bathrobe. Yeah, but he was still worth this much XP. You know what? Understandable, never mind. We take it back.
Have a nice day.
That was me, wasn't it?
Yes, that
That
was
sounds
you.
like a me thing.
Yeah, you were super pissed off at how broken he was until that 1,000,000 XP dropped.
I can't be mad about that. I was mostly mad that every time I tried to cast a spell, he had a retaliatory strike that nearly killed me.
Yeah, and I was very hesitant to actually try and end players because I didn't want to have them hostage for like 4 hours because that fight took like 6 hours.
I mean, I think you might need to get over that because if there's no threat, then it's like, oh, the
Yeah.
DM's pulling his punches and we can do this and this because
I was like-
the DM's not gonna kill us.
Man, I could just end Bobble now. He's literally picking up a weapon while this guy has AOs left, and Bobble literally can't do anything about him hitting him and killing him in one strike at this point.
Okay, there's a reason there because Bauble had been dead like 5 times prior to that.
Yeah.
He's been in purgatory quite a lot.
I would have felt really bad about killing him there. Because then he would be there for the rest of the session waiting for the fight to end.
Are we still stuck in the recording, by the way?
Yeah.
You probably
Good
should have
waffle,
ended that a
we're
while
done.
ago.
No, it's post video story time. It's fine.
Okay, fair.
Well, if you guys enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, maybe subscribe, possibly comment your own experiences or your own opinions about these ability scores and where they should sit.
If you like these
And,
shorter form videos, tell the DM. We would gladly, we would love to hear that.
I was hoping.
How long have we been here? We call it this short? It's like 40 fucking minutes in short form?
An hour and 20 minutes. We've been recording for an hour and 20 minutes.
Well,
Yeah,
half the
but
length of the last video.
Yeah.
Half the length of half our videos.
Fuck. It was supposed to be a short video, but then we started talking.
And we
Anyways.
waffled.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.